To make large sheets of paper, I use a deckle box. Different types of deckle boxes have been used over the centuries, particularly in many South and Southeast Asian countries. Because of the large amount of water used, my intern Elizabeth and I set up outside by the garden with plenty of drains in the pavement. I pigmented the pulp while it was in the vat. The squeeze bottles of pigmented pulp are for the end of the process while the paper is forming. My intern and I built the deckle box together. Our guide was Helen Hebert's The Papermaker's Companion. This is a comprehensive handbook on all aspects of hand paper making. This is the bottom of the box. Notice the hooks and eyes for attaching the top and bottom. I inserted semicircular corners of styrofoam so my paper would be round. Setting up, we laid down a bamboo screen, a matchstick bamboo window shade cut to size, then covered it with non-woven interfacing, a sheet of heavy pellon. This was thoroughly soaked. We then attached the top portion and locked it into place by latching the hooks. This is to make sure the entire assembly stays in place. We covered it with heavy plastic sheeting and tamped it down to fit tightly inside the box. I then filled it with water and added the pulp, which had been beaten the day before in my critter beater, a portable Hollander beater. I added 5 buckets of pulp to the water and made sure the pulp was evenly dispersed. I then added PEO, a formation aid, which slows the drainage and helps the fibers form more even sheets. Next came my choice of pigment. There's a large palette of pigments that I use. I applied it wearing gloves and moved it in various directions to create different passages within the sheet. Then I added retention agent, which helps bind the pigment to the pulp. Now comes the magic part, quickly pulling the plastic sheet away, leaving the pulp to settle on the pellon as the water drains. We rocked the box to distribute the fibers and later leveled the table for subsequent sheets. After the water had thoroughly drained, we unhooked the latches and removed the top part of the box. We lifted the pellon to the thick wood panel, which would start our post. Each successive sheet would be placed on top and the entire post weighted down for the rest of the day. While the paper was forming, I gently pressed pigmented pulp through a grid onto the surface, creating textured passages of color that would guide my printed image. The finished paper was left out in the sun to dry and later transferred indoors to a room with a dehumidifier. Here you can see the textured grid areas. The theme of my work for the past 10 years has been the clash coexistence between the industrial and the natural worlds. Industrial debris, machine parts, and marine life are entangled or morph into one another. Often the debris blocks the passage of the sea life. I cut out my relief prints and collage them onto the paper, and often print directly onto it as well. Circles are like a window into this undersea world where bits of machinery and fragments of plant and sea life float by. This one is called connectors. I always expect the unexpected with my handmade paper. The 2 layers of pigment separated here, leaving pockmarks of color. It suggested constellations or a dreamlike image of sky and sea. I call this one stargazers. This is a portable Hollander beater made by Mark Lander in New Zealand. Each individual beater has its own shield on the roll cover. That screenshot is from paperslurry.com, a great site for all things papermaking. Between Paper Slurry and the Papermaker's Companion, you should have all the information you need to make your own paper.